Lights shine them bright, gonna have a brand new show tonight. With glitz and glam on the marquee, perhaps a Tony nominee. Stars beam brightly, see them glow, sell out nightly, SRO. It's time to applaud the Broadway Beat. Stars beam brightly, see them glow, in the footlights of a show. Life is sweet on the world's most famous street.
Tickets, please.
Take a seat.
Cue the band.
And tap your feet to the rhythm of the Broadway Beat. The Broadway Beat. Broadway Beat.
Hello, I'm Richard Ridge, and welcome to Broadway Beat, our weekly half-hour behind-the-scenes look at the very best of the New York theater on Broadway and beyond. This week we take a look at two of the last shows to open this season. We'll meet the cast of Disney's Tarzan, which has just swung into the Richard Rodgers Theater. The musical features a score by Oscar and Grammy Award winner Phil Collins. But we start things off at the opening night celebration of Martin McDonagh's new black comedy, The Lieutenant of Inishmore. This bloody comic satire of terrorism has just opened at the Lyceum Theater after a sold-out run at Off-Broadway's Atlantic Theater. McDonagh's Olivier Award-winning play is set on a lonely island and chronicles the shockingly funny events that come to pass when someone kills Wee Thomas, the beloved cat of an Irish Liberation Army enforcer played by David Wilmot. The original Atlantic cast was a mix of UK and US actors, including Domhnall Gleeson, Peter Garrity, Dashiell Eves, Brian Darcy James, and newcomer Alison Pill.
Wee Thomas is his! And was since he was 8 years old. His only friend for 15 years! Brought him out to me when he started moving about the country bombing places. Couldn't look after him as decent as he thought needed. His only friend in the world now. Was he fond of him? Of course he was fond of him. Oh, he'll be mad. He will be mad. As if he wasn't mad enough already. Porrick's mad enough for 7 people. Don't they call him Mad Porrick? They do. Isn't it him the IRA wouldn't let in because he was too mad? It is. And he never forgave them for it.
Hysteria, you know, it's so funny. I just laughed at all of the Martin's words, really, and the juxtaposition of all of these insane ideas. And then I wasn't sure that it would. I wasn't sure how it would play. I had second thoughts about it, but I must say that as soon as I started working on it, they just went away.
It's the first play I'd ever read, and it was the first audition I'd ever gone to. So it was like insane, you know. Like, I think you read it and you can't help just be caught up in it. And, you know, I mean, I read it probably 100 times before I went even to the audition, and it wasn't because I had to audition, it was because I loved it so much, you know. And the character who I'm playing is called Davy Clavin, and you just fall in love with him. I was just saying to somebody else, I think he is kind of like, he sort of turns into the love of your life when you're with them all that time. And it sounds very actory and all bullshitty to say that, but it's you know, he's a gorgeous person, and it's, you know, it's nice to be that dim and that nice for a while, you know, because, no, I'm dim, but I'm not nice. So, you know, it's a change of pace.
It's a beautiful ensemble, this show. That's the one great thing when you watch this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think enough people say that, really, you know, how everybody in the show is as important as everybody else in it, you know. Everybody actually, I think, when the show ends, everybody has the same impact on the audience. I don't think there's any, obviously Porrick drives it, but I think in terms of how the play feels, I think it feels very much like an ensemble piece, and when we were rehearsing it felt very much that way, and when we perform it feels very much that way. And it's yeah, as I say, it's a cliche to say, but I think everyone really gets on really well, and, you know, I'm very fond of everyone who I'm working with, so it's nice coming into work for a change.
All the blood and how long it takes you to get off at the end of the show.
Well, I made it here in, you know, half an hour, but that's because I've got all blood on underneath this. So yeah, the blood is horrible. It's made of peanut butter and chocolate and coffee, and it is disgusting.
But you're probably used to it by now, right?
I don't know. When we did it in London, we must have had a higher budget, because they had some stuff that was really sweet and nice. Like, I was like, you know, it was like nice by the end of the thing. But like in this thing, it's like fucking. Oh, excuse me, I'm not gonna say that. Oh yeah, it was like fucking. Yeah, it was like. It's like eating a Snickers bar with coffee granules on it, and then you smell like that. Like, I am genuinely lucky that my girlfriend likes Snickers bars.
We don't be letting girls in the INLA. No, unless pretty girls. What was the message?
Unless pretty girls. Not even middling-looking girls who could put a cow's eye out from 60 yards.
No, we've no call for girls with them attributes.
Unfair to women, that sound.
No, just fair to cows. What was the message, Mairead? Was it about my wee Thomas? No.
Your final word on the matter is you won't let me in the INLA, so not ever.
Not as long as I have any say in the INLA. It's for your own good I'm saying this, Mairead, huh? Be staying home now and marry some nice fella. Sure, let your hair grow out, Tadine, and some fella's bound to be looking twice at you someday. And if you learn how to cook and so too, sure, that'll double your chances.
I get to play one of my favorite roles that I've ever had, a 16-year-old wannabe terrorist from Inishmore, who is the best shot on the island. And she does not take any guff from anyone. It's very fun to be somebody so confident and fun every night.
Well, let's talk about, you've been added into the mix, right? Because the cast, the other cast has sort of been doing the show. What was it like being added into the family?
It was terrifying. It was terrifying to be put in. So I had a week of rehearsal really before I went on stage for 1 week at the Atlantic. And then we came here, and I'd never even come close to being on Broadway. So it was a really intense few weeks, but great fun. And the cast has been so lovely and welcoming, and it's been wonderful.
Well, I've been a Martin McDonagh fan since the beginning. When I first heard about him, my parents were living in London and sending me scripts of plays they were seeing, and I was just blown away. And I mean, it's been a dream of mine to be in one of his plays forever. I mean, for as many years as he's been writing them. And I'm lucky enough to play Joey in the play, who is one of 3 extremely slow terrorists who have many petty conflicts that they have to sort out. They don't get long to do it. They don't last for long.
It's been a blast working on it. I mean, McDonagh's writing is exceptional. I've been familiar with it for a while, and to be in one of his plays is truly an honor. And the role that I play is a character named Brendan, who's one of the INLA guys, who's a member of a splinter group of the IRA, not too bright, trying to do his job, albeit quite poorly. But it's a black comedy, and you know, we all kind of contribute our own little inabilities to lend to the comedic effect.
Well, let's talk about the audience's reaction to the show, because at the Atlantic, I mean, it was right in your face. Yeah. What is it like now uptown on Broadway?
I think there's actually a liberty that people feel in a larger space. They don't feel quite as conspicuous when they have reactions to such gruesome and hilarious things they're seeing. So there's a bit of anonymity involved, which allows people to laugh more and express themselves more freely. In the smaller space, I felt that people were so close and so into it. If you're 1 out of 100 people laughing at someone's head getting chopped off, you're a weirdo. But if you've got 30 other people laughing around you, you're okay. So I think that's an interesting difference, and makes for even larger, more kind of boisterous laughs in the house.
Well, now it's just part of the scene. You know, for a while it was crazy. I was like, I was trying to figure out where things were, because everything's flipped over and you're like, is the audience to the right or to the left? Because I would spin around so much in the scene. But it's exciting. It's always a challenge, particularly in a scene like that where, with the sort of the dark, sort of ominous lighting and things like that, and the fact that you're in one position, like you're upside down, you have to figure out ways to tell the story of the scene through your body physically. How you're gonna, when you're gonna lift up, and how you can maneuver yourself and maneuver your body in ways that are telling the story and not distracting from things, so that I'm not just spinning around all the time. So it was an exciting challenge. It was really a fun part of the scene. Obviously, it's a blast to do.
Not get dizzy with the blood rushing to your head for that long period of time.
Well, I started the first, we rehearsed a couple of weeks before I was in front of an audience, and for the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I would go upside down, and it'd be disorienting in terms of trying to figure out where to look and all those things, but I would be fine. I would be okay. And like 45 minutes after I would get down, I would get kind of the shakes and be a little bit nauseous, feel really strange for an hour or two after that. But after a while, I just figured, my body must have figured out I was not going to die. You know, he's not going to fall and he's not going to die. So after that, it was fine. And now I just don't even, it's just part of it.
It's second nature.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't get dizzy. I eat dinner before I do the show. I don't, you know, I'm not worried or anything like that, you know. So it's been a pretty easy experience from that, after that initial 2 weeks of getting used to it.
I know it's a brilliant part. I mean, it's a very empowering part, as in most actors would. You know, if you're playing a lead and you've got your first scene, you get a bit nervous, but you can't really afford to with this character, because he puts you in such a situation where you're. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but you know, you just can't get nervous when you're that dominating as a character. You know, it's a brilliant character. I'm very lucky. I'm a very lucky actor to be playing. I'm a bit too old, to be honest with you. He's supposed to be 21, so anyway.
It's a dark show. It's dark. It's, you know, and just talk about the audience's reaction to this show and what it was like at the Atlantic and now on Broadway.
Well, it seems to have gone up a level, and I'm not sure if people pay more money for their tickets, they have a better night, but I think the theatre as well it's slightly morphed. I think it's come a bit more vaudevillian, and I'm not sure, but in the Atlantic it was a little scarier, and here I think it's more fun. But it's a very joyous show, and people laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. So, you know, that's all we want, is that they're having a good night, and people do. They really enjoy it. I hope people aren't put off by the blood, because in the long run it's irrelevant. You know, it's so funny. You know.
Martin does come from a very cinematic background, and I do as well. I don't have proper theatrical training, and so we approach things, well, how do we do that? This is how they would do it in a movie. Why can't we do it on stage? And so you find some nuances and you say, no, but I really would like to try this effect. You can shoot somebody in the head and make it real. You can say very little without giving too much away here. And but something I've said before is that you can watch. I've always wanted to see people reload guns on stage, because bullets run out, and very few movies since Peckinpah, since John Woo, do you see people have to go that. It's a reality. It's a pact for the audience that this isn't fake. It's not a soundtrack. They're shooting bullets. You watch them reload, and people you've learned to care about before these incidents happened.
See, it's funny you mentioned Killer Joe. It's one of my favorite shows here, and that was so, you could smell the linoleum in the trailer, and it's the same thing with Tarzan and Inishmore. I mean, you believe that all this stuff's really happening on stage, and you know it can't be, that they're not really shooting people and killing people. Then you see someone's head up there, and you're like, wait a minute. You know, so it's really amazing, like the freak out you've done for an audience, but I guess that's really what theater is all about, and like you said, coming from a cinematic way to do it, you've done it so beautifully.
And also, I will put in one plug that I haven't been in New York in 8 years since then, but we have the same fight choreographer. And we have a new FX guy who does some of the beautiful effects you see. So we kept some of the team together and pushed it much, much further.
The message was, we Thomas is over the worst of it. But we heard on to him just to be on the safe side now.
But he's over the worst of it.
He is.
Oh, I love you, Marie. I could kiss her.
Tarzan the Musical, Disney's latest adaptation, has swung into the Richard Rodgers Theater. Two-time Tony Award winner Bob Crowley has directed and designed the sets and costumes. Oscar and seven-time Grammy Award-winning composer Phil Collins has written the music and lyrics, expanding his songs from the Disney film. Tarzan features a book by Tony Award winner David Henry Hwang. Based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' classic novel, Tarzan features Broadway veterans Timothy Jerome, Shuler Hensley, and newcomers Jen Gambertise as Jane and Josh Strickland as Tarzan.
Put your faith in what you most believe in. Two worlds, one family. Trust your heart. Let fate decide to guide these lives we see. Put your faith in what you most believe in. Two worlds, one family. Trust your heart. Let fate decide to guide these lives we seek. Beneath the shelter of the tree simple life. They live in peace.
Well, what attracted me was the story and Phil's music, which I thought had an incredible emotional depth, and I thought it took an old familiar tale and told it in a sort of unfamiliar way, and that I thought I could provide a visual world to match it, so it's kind of an extension of what I do, but it's been an extraordinary experience, but here I am.
What were the biggest challenges for you as the director and the designer?
Trying to be in 3 places at once, because I've done the costumes as well. So the divide itself is not, I've redefined the divide itself. But as a director, just the physical side of the show, because normally I design things where people just walk through a door or come on stage and sit down on a sofa or a chair or a table and whatever. But here I'm using every bit of the stage that's possibly imaginable, and so the whole physical side of the show is very, complicated to work out, and that was the biggest challenge in lots of ways, yes. But also just matching Phil's music and the great story. They're both things that are extraordinary, and I had to match them, and I've tried my best to tell them as best I could.
Well, it's been very long and it's very complicated because you can't rehearse people on the ground. You have to have them up there, like the moth, for instance, that he not only has to have his wings, he has to be raised up, and we have to work with the programmers too, so that, all of that. I have little storyboards where I calculate all the seconds, where he'll be and what he'll do, so it's quite complicated, yeah.
So when did it all come together during the rehearsal process? When was it all working?
Well, we started in December, and we started a few ideas then, and I guess just before the previews, we got everything together, but as soon as we went into the theatre, it was different again. We discovered new things, and, so it kept changing and evolving all the time.
I feel fantastic. I'm just really proud of the cast. I've seen this show God knows how many times now, and I still get excited, I still get moved, still get thrilled by it. And, for me, it's just like I never thought. I had a card from Susan Stroman saying, who's a friend of mine. Yeah, and she's a lovely, lovely lady. But she wrote me a card saying, you've got a Broadway musical. Do you know how many times that doesn't happen? And it kind of makes me realize just how lucky I am to be in this position. People have trusted me, and I really, I'm very grateful for having the opportunity.
Well, was the process different from what you thought it was going to be when you first started working on the musical?
Well, I didn't have no idea. I had no idea what to expect, really, and so I did come here with the expectation, 26th of December, that when we started rehearsing on the 27th in Brooklyn, out of the Navy Yard, that we would be rehearsing what we'd spent 3.5 years talking about. And then, of course, you realise that the cast comes in, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, all you've been working with is a prototype. And the creative process keeps going, and we need a song. That song's great, but it doesn't work there. So, we need a new song. And that kind of thing is great for me. I'm so glad that I've still been asked to do new things since I've been here.
What were some of the newer songs that you've written over the last month or two for the show?
Who Better Than Me for Turk. I've written more songs for Turk, the character, than any other thing I've ever done in my life. I've got about 6 or 7 discarded songs because the character kept changing. And then finally Chester Gregory came in and made it his own. And I had a great song, which I will do on my own album next time. But I had a lovely song, but it just wasn't really working. And in the end, I went for I rewrote something for with a Motown kind of feel. And everybody starts doing this, and he's taken it and made it his own. So that's one. Sun Turns to Moon for Carla and Kerchek. No Other Way for Kerchek. There's For the First Time for Jane. There's so many. For me, the biggest songs, apart from You'll Be in My Heart, the biggest songs are the new ones.
The best part of it is that it's once again, it's a character that really wasn't flushed out in the movie. It's more about being in the book, and there's a conflict there of his duties as the leader and his duties are, being a father figure. And they're so against each other because of Tarzan being a human and being an outsider. So that was the challenging thing about the struggle between the two.
I played Turk. Turk is Tarzan's lifelong friend. We have a different spin on it. There's not a young Turk. Turk starts off as a man already with young Tarzan, and then we just sort of go from there. And Turk shows Tarzan how to swing and, just how to get his whole ape language together.
And just talk about like singing Phil Collins songs and just performing this for this audience 8 times a week.
It's amazing. Phil Collins wrote a song especially for me when I did this role called Who Better Than Me. And so that song is still new, and so it's still fresh, and it's a great song. I love singing it every night. Phil Collins is perfect for this.
I think that the book has been a tremendous resource for stuff that I'm doing and stuff that everybody is doing. It's not the animated film, and so it serves as a resource rather than a template for what we must do. It's what we could do if we could find a way of bringing that aspect of the character into the show. And it's a wellspring of wonderful stuff that we can draw on. I mean, I think that the theme of the show is such an important theme for today's audiences and today's world. It's a theme of overcoming xenophobia, of overcoming hatred of and fear of something other than what you are. The analogy, the allegory of gorillas being something. How can you make it with a gorilla? And yet Tarzan is kind of a gorilla, and yet he's a human, and you overcome this xenophobic fear by understanding how Tarzan does it, and how Jane can fall in love with someone from that culture. And I think it's an important theme for today.
I wanna know, can you show me? I wanna know about these strangers' life. Tell me more, please show me something familiar about these strangers' life.
I feel unbelievable. This is the best experience I think I will ever have in my life, and I love it.
I think this is gonna be something to look back on. This is gonna be a thing that's going to make me feel very happy and look back on my kids when I get older and speak. I was in Tarzan. I played Tarzan on Broadway.
Now, you guys split the role. You each do how many a week?
We each do 4 a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you learn the roles together?
Yeah, we both started rehearsing at the same time. Yeah.
So that must have been really cool, right, to learn this role together?
Yeah. Yeah, because they've treated everything fair, and we are learning everything together.
When we were in the rehearsal room, you see how out on a limb everybody has to go. To see everybody conquer their fear, whether it was letting go of the scaffolding when they were flying, or dealing with all of the ape movement, or just basically just conquering every single kind of fear they could get their hands on, because we all had to be daredevils in every way.
I think the best part of the journey is knowing that he is an integral part of the story. I mean, without him, there's no conflict. These two lovers would get together, in the first scene, and there's not much stopping that. So I think it's sort of realizing what an integral part of this story that the dark is. The dark side of this story is as prevalent and as important and as interesting as the good stuff that comes out of it. And I think that goes back to just Edgar Rice Burroughs' ingenious. And he was writing at a time in England when there were things like British imperialism. He touched on themes such as racism, and in this case speciesism, which we relate to as racism. And I think that's another part of the journey that's fun for me, is I get to tell those stories in my little cog in the machine kind of way, Right?
Broadway debut, playing Tarzan. I'm just flabbergasted. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I made my Broadway debut in this same theater, actually, in Footloose, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's nice.
So tell me what it's like playing these legendary characters from this book that has lived on through generation after generation.
It's tough. I mean, like it's something that you have to, make sure that you're doing right because everybody knows the story and everybody loves the story. So you want to make sure that you play it right and that you're playing it from your heart, basically. That's where the story was written. So.
Yeah, and then there's also the added element of them being Disney heroines and heroes. Yeah. So there's the original stories, and then there's this movie. So you have the younger audiences that
know your character and know what's going on,
and
they're waiting. Singing this wonderful Phil Collins score. I mean, were you a big fan of Phil Collins before this?
Yes.
Yes, I was just saying, I remember my first work session with him. I was walking down the hallway and I hear him at the piano singing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm about to go in and sing with Phil Collins.
Your heart beats faster every time that because you want to impress him a little bit. So, but it's been a dream come true for me.
Definitely, definitely, and he's so sweet.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your body language. How do you stay on your wrists and your hands, and how did you prepare for that?
Throughout the entire process, even when we started doing rehearsals over in Brooklyn, we would have an hour and a half of time in a studio just working on our moves, working on our monkey movements and how they move. We would even put on National Geographic movies and watch their body language and watch how they play with each other and how, and how they love each other. So, that is basically a lot where a lot of it came from, is from that.
Now, when were you most comfortable with the flying?
Gosh. It became comfortable after, I have to say, the first week of flying. It was a little bit rocky there for a little bit, and we were all a little scared, seeing what's going on, but it got better after the first week, I would say.
Yeah, and we actually did a lot more flying in rehearsal that didn't necessarily make it into the show, but we were really sort of prepared to do anything, so that was nice, and we always loved flying together.
Yeah, no,
that's fun.
Every ending comes a new beginning. Two worlds, one family. Trust your heart, let fate decide to guide these lives.